I don't feel like this aspect necessarily of moving abroad is talked about a lot. And hubby and I just had what I would deem to be tonight anyway. We just had what I would deem to be a very privileged conversation. And yes, I think with moving abroad came some sense of privilege in how we talk and how we move, but that wasn't without sacrifice. Sacrifices we were willing to make, but sacrifices nevertheless. And there's this push and pull of, privilege and sacrifice, and I want to talk about the harmony between those two things, like what it really feels like and what it really felt like for me in this process and what it feels like now in this process, where I am right now. And yeah, I want to talk about it. So hey, first and foremost, welcome. Thank you. I'm Imani. I am many things, one of which is a marriage coach. So, yes, on the channel, I do talk a lot about relationships, and I love it. I love to talk about relationships. And also, I talk a lot about life, how we can figure yourself out, figure ourselves out, how to navigate through change and transition, and what that looks like in real time. And I want to have a conversation about that now. I feel like privilege comes in a lot of forms. Many of us have different privileges growing up. My husband and I have a running joke. He calls me Silver Spooner, and it's funny, but it really has to do with the fact that he and I had different upbringings. There's certain things that I don't understand about having it tough in certain areas in upbringing, and whether you have a one or a two parent home, and how much was coming in, and whether you're a latchkey kid and what side of town you were living on, and pointing out certain levels of privilege that I had in my childhood, and sometimes you don't even realize you have certain privileges. And so we have this running joke around that. And I say that to say, like, what we have to figure out what our definition of privilege is, what privileges we had. I definitely went to really good schools growing up, not like whoa schools. I knew people in private schools with celebrities' kids. So, I was like at like a regular either public or charter school, or in early parts of my life, I was also in private schools. And I was like, oh, because I wasn't going to private school with celebrities, I didn't see it as necessarily a privilege. But I also didn't have um, metal detectors in my school, and I know folks that they did, and that was their experience, and they didn't have as many field trips. Like I experienced certain things, and I got the privilege of experiencing those things during my childhood and in my upbringing. Even something like having my own room. I'll talk to friends, you had your own room. Like I was sharing with, and so you start, as you piece that together, you start to think about privilege differently. Privilege isn't this black and white thing. There are many privileges, obviously, I do not have. Just being a black person growing up in, United States, and being a black woman, like there are just certain things you're like, you don't feel like you have those privileges. And yet in life, as you go through, there are certain things that you feel like, oh, that was a privilege. And so hubby and I are here talking about traveling, right? We're talking about, we're having this conversation about, oh, we want to go to the mountains of Panama because we haven't seen them yet. He really wants to go. This is like really a part of Panama that he really wants to see. I'm really excited to see, but he's like really excited to see it. And I was like, okay, what are we gonna do? And he was like, he's looking up where we can stay and different tours we can take that he's interested in. And he was like, yeah, we can stay here. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, we also want to get, we want to travel back to the States sometime this summer. We have an event that we want to go to there. And then when they do the gas check in our building, we're thinking about spending maybe 3 or 4 weeks in Colombia. And the check I have learned here is basically they do a gas line check in the building every 4 years. And we happen to land on the year that they're going to do it, and basically they turn off your gas for, from my understanding, for a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks maybe, depending. And if they find something wrong, it can be shut down for months, and that's interesting. So hopefully they don't find anything wrong. But yeah, they do these every 4 years they do these gas checks. And so they're gonna do it, and the gas is gonna be shut off, and that means our stove and things won't work. We can kick it with a hot plate, and we have one of those toaster ovens, but our dryer is gas. Like we have a washer and dryer. The dryer is gas too, so we won't be able to dry our clothes. Now I'm like, okay, we can do dry. We have a rack. We can dry our clothes outside, but it's rainy season and it's super humid. I don't even know what that looks like for drying the clothes because it's so humid outside. So I was like, oh, we might, we were like, maybe we should just take a trip during that time. And I was looking at him like, this is such a privileged conversation we were having about where we're going to go and where we're going to travel. And somebody else might not see that as a privileged conversation, but I think you have to understand the before and after, right? And my head is going to our before. And we weren't having conversations about where we're going to travel, especially not internationally. And I know for some people, it might feel like the norm, and that may be their privilege where they planned at least 1 to 2 international trips in the course of a year. Or maybe like they're going to one island and then one big international trip, or they're going to at least 2 islands or something like that that's feasible. They're having a vacation regularly. And that wasn't our reality. Um, our reality was sometimes tight. As two entrepreneurs, there's an ebb and flow to your income, and you work to plan for that ebb and flow, but there's some tightness around that. And when something happens, or there's an emergency, or they go up on your bill way more than you thought they were going to go up on your bill, or something, it really can throw things off. And it, I remember being like, okay, we might not be able to take these vacations, but what can we do? And so we started doing camping a lot. It was a very economical way for our kids to, for us to have a road trip, go camping and have fun and do our thing. And we would do local things. We would go on road trips and, um, just things that we could do that were simple that the kids could still enjoy, that we can make memories as a family. And I think that was important. I love that we did that. I love that we, had some lemons, okay, and we made some lemonade. We squeezed all the lemon juice we could. We squeezed all the lemon juice we could squeeze out of the lemons. You know what I'm saying? And I think it was I applaud us for that. And there wasn't a lot of discretionary income. And the things that we had that were discretionary, we put towards savings and things like that because if things popped off, we wanted to make sure that we had something. And um and there were times we had to use that and then the savings is gone and you're like, I'm so glad that I had that. And also I wish I didn't have to use it and I could keep growing it. But things happen. That's life, right? So they're just this and what we did have discretionary income, we did that, and we poured into the kids activities and my daughter's different homeschooling activities. And so there wasn't a lot for vacation. There wasn't a lot for maybe buying the kids in our lives more birthday gifts and things like that and sending it. And that's something that I always felt a little bad about, especially because I didn't live in the same state as some of these kids that I wanted to be like, "Hey," and, send them some things, but it wasn't something that was necessarily in our budget. It wasn't something that we had on a regular basis, and so we had to make a lot of choices about where our money was gonna go and how we were gonna spend our time with the money that we had. And so now to be in a situation where we're talking about this kind of travel and this level of travel within 1 year, being that we've already moved, we already been to Costa Rica. Our kids have 2 stamps on their passport, and they just got their passport for this trip. And God willing, if we're able to go to Colombia, then this year as well, they'll have a third passport stamp in a year. This is the first time I'm saying that out loud. So even me saying it, I'm like, wait, our kids will have their third passport stamp in 1 year, God willing, if we're able to make that trip. So I'm just like, man, this is where we are. And yet there was sacrifice to get here. And I've mentioned some things before, but I'm going to mention it in more detail. We sold our house And I'm not the first people to sell your house to move abroad. Some people sell their house, some people keep their house. We sold our house to move abroad. And I'm like, it's not necessarily or so much the fact that we the fact that we sold the house. I'm not, and I've talked on this channel, but I'm not super attached to things in that regard. When my husband and I have had what, like 6 addresses, not including this one. So 7 if you include this one, but 6 addresses since we started living together. So not attached so much to a place. We had been in that house for 3 years, but it was the process of selling that house. This process of selling that house felt like sacrifice. The process of selling that house felt like a lesson in patience. We put our house up for sale and we're still living in it. I don't know if you have you been through that process, like still living in the house that you are selling, that you are showing to strangers. It is a very odd and sometimes uncomfortable thing. Energetically, strangers are moving up and down our house. And we sold everything in our house. And so the top part of our house was empty. And we had some things that needed to get done. We painted, like we did some basic renovation things. And while the renovations were going on, we lived in our basement. We camped a little bit in our backyard, and we spent a couple of days at my dad's house. And it took maybe about 10 days or so to do the floors and painting and all that so that we could sell it. And then once we put it up for a market, now we have strangers coming in and out of the house energetically. That was kind of whack. And we're sleeping in one room on the floor. And every time somebody's coming in the house, we're like putting stuff up. And that's fine, right? That's the process. But it's still like a lot energetically. It was inconvenient. It was like strangers are in this house that we were not in. It was sometimes uncomfortable. Um, and you just don't know when you're going to sell your house. And we had offers come in that were super low ball and that didn't make sense. And we have offers come in and then, not pan out when we thought it was going to pan out. Oh, we're ready. Oh, no, we're not actually doing that. Okay. Back to the drawing board. That sucks. So it was a roller coaster ride emotionally. And we were at a place where you're one foot's out the door and one foot's in the door. Right? So people have talked about, I know, selling their house to move abroad, but like the process of doing that, one foot in, one foot out the door, which was like, we're living like we don't live here, but we live here. And there's certain things my husband had to transition out of his business in preparation for us moving in that leap of faith, which changed our income drastically, which meant like we only have a certain number of, amount of time before keeping the lights on in this house like we're supposed to and keeping the water running and all that is about to get real tricky. So, yeah, there was that. And we were like, especially when we thought we were in the clear and it was a go and we're closing and we didn't. And then we had it again. And it was so crazy. The people that bought our home, they had like cold feet at one point. So we're going through the process and they give an offer, we counter the offer, and then they go silent. And their realtor was like, yeah, they said that they needed some time. We were like, time for what? Like, this is what the house you said you wanted. I'm like, are we about to go through this again? Are we about to do this roller coaster ride again? And it took a couple of days and they were like, okay, yeah, no, we're gonna do it. But then you have to go through inspection. And that's a whole other thing because when they start expecting, then there might be something they want, then they want to negotiate differently, they might back out, and you're back where you were. And again, like we're one foot out, one foot in. And you don't want to be in that place where you feel so desperate that you have to just take whatever. You want to be in a position where it makes sense what you're getting, but also you're like, we got one foot out the door. Like, how is this gonna work? But it did. And we did sell our house. And then there's the emotion of selling the house. I wasn't attached to the physical house. My husband wasn't either. My kids kind of have memories of the house, but they're not like, oh man, I wish I was still in the house. They're like, they're on this adventure with us and they're willing participants. But there's that that moment that I went and we signed the papers and we like, the house is theirs. We were like, oh snap, we're homeless. It was so weird because we were literally like, are we are we homeless right now? Because that's what it kind of feels like. Like we do not have a place to call our own for the first time ever in our lives. Like, yes, we have family, so you could say, that kind of thing. But it was just like an apartment where we're paying rent or a house where we did not have that. And it was an odd feeling. And it kind of felt like you were floating, and it kind of felt like you were in limbo. And it also kind of felt pretty liberating because it was like, oh, snap. We can do whatever. We can go whatever. What we own are in these suitcases, and we can move without feeling anchored. And that felt amazing. So it was the harmony too, right? This the privilege and the sacrifices we were willing to make, shifts that we were willing to make. But even emotionally, that feeling of security and having a home and a place, that's what we've always had, versus this kind of floating, liberated feeling, and the harmony between the two of those internally. So there's these things happening externally, these choices that we're making, and then these things happening internally, like, oh snap, what now? Like, we really doing this? Like, well, there's no turning back now. We're homeless. So we're gonna have to find a place to stay and get these tickets and go. And we did. We had a friend, we stayed with a friend for like 3 weeks. Amazing friend, family. Okay. This is like they're friends, but they're family. And we stayed with them, and it was really nice. It was awesome kind of to have the closeness of friendship in that transition time. And then we were like, we got tickets. And it was another stage of like, oh, we're really doing this. Like, even after you sell your house, you're still like, we really doing this? Question mark. And then the next thing you say is a statement, we're really doing this. Period. Statement. And then the other stage of like, you get your tickets to go. And you're like, oh no, the tickets have been bought. You have a date. You're really doing this. And you get on that plane and you arrive somewhere new, and you're figuring that part out. And being here and feeling like you're starting anew, because you're learning how things are done, you're meeting new people, you're making new connections. My husband had to, you know, he went full time doing something that he had only dabbled in or done part time here and there before. And all of it's new. And it feels amazing. And it also feels a little scary. It also feels like we're probably going to jack up somewhere along the way. And we're going to have to figure this out. And we will. We'll figure it out. That's what the leap of faith is for, right? That's where it's like, that's where it comes in. But for us, it was all worth it. And the overarching question was, how do we want to live our lives? How do you want to live your life? That's I love that question because it really has grounded me, because I want to live a life of some sense of liberation and freedom to explore and do things that scare the crap out of me and do things that felt impossible at one point. Wow, I did not expect to get a little emotional, but do things that felt like so out of reach. And it was not easy to get here, because we literally had to make decisions that said we're leaving these things that we have built behind, not just for us, also for our children, and believe that what we're moving towards is going to be better, because God put it on my heart and in my mind, and every step of the way the path was clear to execute this move and to follow through and to do this thing and to be here in this moment, in this time. But there's a harmony, because I do miss the community that I had. And while I'm building community here, there's a grief and there's a mourning And I'm missing out on these things that I see them doing on Instagram, and I'm excited for them, and I'm happy for them, and I love them, and I'd love to see it. I don't want to not see it, but also seeing it is a reminder that I'm not there, and that if I was there, I would be there. And that's not always an easy feeling. Missing the routine of the people that I saw, and the life that I lived there, and then living it here, the harmony of the newness and the excitability and the feelings that I get of home and comfort from what we've built here and what we're building here, but then also the grief and the mourning and the sadness and the missing of what we built there. This constant sense of like back and forth, but then anchoring it to it, it's all worth it. It's worth it for us. Any of the sacrifices that we made willingly. And the journey that it took to get here was part of what we had to take to get here. And this is our chosen, this is the decision we chose. This is the decision we made. This is the choice we made. All of that, all of those words together, decision, choice. You feel me? You feel me? You know what I'm trying to say. And we made it because of the life that and the lifestyle that we know we want to live, and that we truly feel is going to be beneficial for our children. Like my son just turned 4, my daughter's 10. The experiences they have had already are some of ones that I've never had. And so they have another layer of privilege than even the one that my husband jokes about me having, right? Like they have another layer. They went to Costa Rica for my birthday and had a private chef experience, someone come into our Airbnb and cook for us. Like I said, if God willing, we're able to go to Colombia, we're gonna have 3 passport stamps in 1 year, and they just got their passport for this trip to Panama. I didn't get a passport stamp until I was in high school because I was part of an organization. Some people don't get it till they go abroad or they do like a study abroad program. Some people are grown adults, super grown, before they get the opportunity to travel and to get like it's not just as commonplace as we like to think about it. There are people who don't, and there are people who do. And again, it goes back to that sense of like privilege, and also that our senses of what's possible, and also our sense of like what are we willing to let go of. I'm gonna leave you with that because I feel like I was like, "Ooh, this is the anchoring question," but there's so many anchoring questions because what kind of life do you want to live is an anchoring question, and also what are you gonna let go of? I've talked about that here on the channel before, but I think it still begs repeating, or it's still worth repeating of like, what are you willing to let go of? And we were willing to let go of things. That doesn't mean that letting go of it was easy, but we were still willing to do that. Because if we're holding too tightly to something, we're not even open to anything else and to the other thing because we're here. But when we're like, okay, we're gonna let this go over here, now we're open to grab hold of something else. That was the point. And that is what this experience has definitely shown us to be true. So yeah, there's definitely a harmony and a gray area and kind of a push and pull to this process of deciding to live a different life and to live outside of your home country. And um, we did it. We're here, and there's no regrets. So thank you for listening. I didn't know exactly what was going to come out of today's video, but I appreciate you being here. If you've gotten this far with me, say say hey below if you haven't already in the comments so that I can say hey back. And yeah, I appreciate your time, your listening ear. Until next time, we're here. I make videos to remind us to stay connected. Stay connected to yourself, to your partners, and to creating the life that feels good to you. And if that's your vibe, please subscribe. Let's continue this thing in real time. Let's continue these conversations. Pull up with a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a smoothie, whatever you got, and let's chat. All right. I'm gonna see you next time.